Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Purple Noon, a podcast. I'm Stephanie Conti, and I am here with the oh-so-pretty Savanna Lanausse.
Simple, but I like it. Hi,
Yeah,
guys.
I mean, we're talking about 3 different short films, and I don't think I ever heard a name once in any of these short films that we're going to be talking about today. So I was like, she just gets the title of pretty, that's for today. But yeah, how are you doing, Savannah?
I'm good. How are you?
Very good, very good. Tired. I don't know about you. To our viewers who are listening, we live in the Central Florida area where it has been nonstop raining for the past week. Every day looks like night, and it's awful.
I enjoy it.
I only enjoy it in small increments because then, my anemia just starts, like, hey, it's dark out. You got to go to bed. That's not my anemia, but that's just my weird sickly body going, hey, it's nap time all the time.
I can feel that. I've had to double up on my vitamins too. Fun fact, me and Stephanie have the same illness. Woo! For cousins. No, but yeah, I enjoy it.
Thalassemia people what?
I do like the rain just because since we're all at home, really, I haven't really been out because of quarantine and everything. I kind of enjoy it. It makes me feel snuggly,
That's fair. Yeah, I've been just watching TV in my room all day, every day. I think the biggest thing is that I miss playing grasketball. And for those who don't know, the art of grasketball, you take a basketball hoop. It's not basketball, it's grasketball. You put it in your backyard because you're too lazy to move the cars out of your driveway. This creates a whole new game because you can't dribble. So you're just kind of awkwardly holding the ball in your hands as you're moving side to side while trying to play. Because you're not on concrete, there's no push. You can't push yourself off of anything. It's kind of like, the best way I can explain it is like in Naruto when Rock Lee has the weights on his legs. For all of my nerds listening, it's like when Rock Lee has the weights on his legs and he takes them off and he's better. So it's like the grass is the weights on my leg because I can't push off. Now, if I do fall, it's a lot softer.
I was going to say.
But I already can't jump. And if you think I'm jumping on grass, you're wrong. You are wrong. So that is workout. I mean, yeah. I'm working hard, but yeah, because of the rain and everything, grasketball is impossible. So that's really, I'm really missing the art of grasketball. And I dare all of you guys to, if you have a basketball hoop, just think, maybe I should just put it in a place where you don't play basketball. Put it in the grass. See how that resistance is. You'll be a better player.
Thank you for the tips.
Of course. And also a little bit of news. So not only are we going back to our 2-week movies, 2 movies a week schedule. Sorry, we're college students and classes start next week. So we're just getting ahead of the schedule.
Yeah.
So it's going to be how it originally was, Friday and Sunday at noon. You'll have an episode. And then also, we recently just did a collaboration with Criterion Cast. And Criterion Cast has many other different podcasts, but the podcast that we collaborated with was Criterion Reflections podcast, where me and Savannah kind of sat down over the internet with David Blakesley, and we talked about 3 feminist films. And it's very good, very interesting, and it was a lot of fun to do. So I will have the link in the bio. Savannah, did you have a good time recording?
Shout out to our boy David
Blakesley, the man. It's it's funny when I was trying to make a tag when I uploaded it on my personal account, when I was saying I'm a part of this, I was literally going to write, hey, guess what? I could talk about this because I'm a woman. Just in the thing, and I looked at it, I'm like, that's a little stupid. Let's delete that.
Yeah. But it was a lot of fun. David's awesome. Very cool. Thank you for believing in us. Definitely check that out. We actually hope to be on some of his future episodes as well.
Absolutely. I am excited to go back. I mean, come on. We love talking about films. So if we can add one more person into the mix occasionally, or a few other people into the mix, that's just more films to talk about, you know?
Yeah,
That's just great. Just a good time. And with that being said, we will, on our own podcast, we will be having guests starting next month. It's all to be determined, but we have a list of people and names on a schedule, and hopefully we'll be bringing some pretty interesting and exciting guests onto our podcast.
Absolutely.
So typically today's episode, we would be normally going through alphabetical order or numerical order to alphabetical order of Criterions, both available on Criterion Channel and just in the collection overall. So I had said last week, I'm like, we're going to be talking about Eighth Continent. I thought it was a film that was 217 minutes. I was wrong. It's an 11-minute 2017 film. So as I did more, I was like, I do want to see Eighth Continent. So instead of just simply being an Eighth Continent review, we're going to be talking about 3 in total, 3 Yorgos Zois. I'm sorry, I'm not Greek. Yorgos Zois, 3 of his short films.
Okay.
So we're going to be talking about Eighth Continent, Casus Belli, and Third Kind.
Do you want to go in that order?
Yeah, we got to do Eighth Continent because that was the one I had said first. So if you're here for Eighth Continent, here we go. So Eighth Continent is a short film that came out in 2017. And the plot is in Lesbos Island, an abandoned dump lies on a mountain with 2 big craters. The craters are flown by thousands of life jackets from the refugee waves. So it's a 11-minute short film, like I said. And keep in mind, have you ever heard of Yorgos Zois before?
No. No.
The only Yorgos I know is Yorgos Lanthimos.
Yeah, because he's
the only Yorgos, but now I got 2 Yorgoses in my life, and I'm very pleased because I had no idea who he was. Like I said, I was just trying to create our schedule and go in alphabetical, numerical order, and so when Eighth Continent came up, and I first watched that to see what, if we were going to have to skip Eighth Continent, what else? And I'm so happy that we did this because I really, not only Eighth Continent, I enjoy the director's work. So Savanna, what did you, and also another thing, there's not a lot of cast with these 3 short films. There's not a lot of main characters or things like that. It's more about messages within the imagery. So if you don't hear me talk about cast and who stars in it, that is why.
But I think that's a big, it's a main theme in his films. You don't really get to know your characters. There are, I think 2 of them, they're people in the films. There's only one of them where I think you only see one guy. But
yeah.
I think that's sort of the take. It's more of a social commentary, I would say, right?
Yeah, through imagery, social commentary through imagery, through the use of angles, and more so the objects. I think he definitely, especially with these 3, focused more on the placement of objects in the film, the mise-en-scène, if you will. I took a few film courses. The mise-en-scène in the film, just the way things are positioned and stuff like that. And literally, fun fact, that's the only thing I remember. If you tell me, hey, what angles you want, I will give you every other angle name. I will give you something I have made up entirely, but I won't tell you. I just want a wide shot. I'll be like, I want it like this, and it's going to be super complicated. But yeah, that's why you don't teach yourself film, because you end up like me, where you only know mise-en-scène. So Savannah, what did you think of Eighth Continent?
So, just to be completely honest, if you don't stay with this film, I do think you can easily not understand what's going on. The first 10 minutes, I was confused because there's a lot of still images, meaning the camera stays on one thing for literally 2 or 3 minutes, and sometimes longer. So I did sometimes find myself a little bit okay, where is this going? Because I think, just for me, I'm used to slower paced films, and I'm used to the films where not a lot of things happen at once. But this is, as Stephanie said, a lot of imagery and a lot of still imagery. So just to put it out there, this is not a fast moving film at all.
Even if it's 11 minutes, and even still, it's not fast moving. It'll feel 20 minutes easily when you watch it, because, there's not, in terms of like character, there's no character plot. There's no people that you can, like, there's people are represented, but there's no actual characters to make a connection with.
No. But the best way I could describe it is sort of like a painting. Because for me, it reminded me a lot of art. You know, when you go to the museum and you see a painting and you examine it, I feel like that's where he was trying to go with this. You have to sort of examine the film. And when I finally stood back, and I think it was the end of the movie, I realized what was going on. It was very powerful. It's a very, very powerful message. And it does kind of, especially because this film, well, a lot of his films have the theme of refugees. And I think for somebody like me who has almost to no personal, I guess,
connection, you know, you've never been in the situation before.
I think a film like that is important because, like I said, for somebody like me who's never had a personal connection, who's only saw things like that from news or stories, I think his film gives a lot of context and puts you face to face with those issues. What do you think?
I absolutely agree. I think with almost, I would say 2 out of the 3 of his films, so definitely Eighth Continent was one of them, where my heart dropped into my stomach the minute I realized the message that was being conveyed. And the message of Eighth Continent is you just see this man kind of on an island with life jackets. And in reality, the number of life jackets is supposed to represent not only those who swam from different countries to try to get into Greece, but it also shows, or rather just into Europe in general, but it's also a representation of who didn't make it.
Exactly. Yeah.
So, and it's really like once you realize that, and I think one of the most harboring images is at the end, like you said, is when you see this crucifix made to look like someone in a light vest. And it's that connection, and just like, ooh, like I'm even getting heebie-jeebies just thinking about it, because it's just so like the fact that there's no words being said, the fact that there's nothing else except this haunting imagery, the fact that like you realize this is a memorial. Yeah. And I think it's brilliant. And so I saw Casus Belli first, and then I saw Eighth Continent. And after watching those, I was like, whoa, this guy can direct. Because even though like there's no characters, there's no at least in Eighth Continent there's no memorable music, but his angles and the way things are perceived and how he wants you to perceive things is 10 out of 10 out of 10 out of 10. Like to carry that message, the weight of that message in an 11-minute short film is insanely, it's just insanely good to carry a message. It's kind of like, you know how people say like, oh, Up was able to show a love story, like one of the best love stories ever in like 12 minutes in the intro. It's the same way, like how that's like the only thing I can compare it to. But that's what this feels like. It's like you were able to create that power within 11 minutes. And so I commend them.
And just from 11 minutes, you felt all that is a credit to him. You know, of how good an artist he is. We could watch 3-hour movies about history or social commentary, and some of us don't even feel anything. And the fact that he made us all feel something in 11 minutes and put us face to face with a humanitarian crisis is amazing. I also like the only person we see in the film is this man who I assume I don't remember his position. At first I thought he was a trash man, you know?
Yeah, kind of like ocean cleanup type of thing.
And like the way he was just sort of throwing the life vests, cleaning up, and just not caring. I do feel like that is a representation of most of us.
Yeah, because if you notice, this is supposed to represent a memorial. Obviously, there's a crucifixion with a life vest on it.
Yeah.
But the way, like, if you see the way that these things are tossed, it just looks forgotten. And I
Exactly.
think that's the hugest thing, like all of these vests that are dirty and stuff. And then there's one scene where after that, after we see the guy and we see the crucifixion with the vest on it, it gets dark. And then we're starting to see, you know, the lights from these life vests start reflecting in the night. And I wondered, and I remember thinking to myself, those look like eyes. You know, the way it was positioned and
Oh,
everything,
yeah,
the
yeah,
way it
yeah.
looked like eyes staring at you.
Yeah, I see that. Yeah. Which is very, very creepy, but
Very jarring. It's
yeah.
very jarring, but absolutely in terms of, because here's the thing, not everyone is going to, especially, I hate to say this, but Americans, not everyone is going to want this to subject themselves to a 3-hour film about immigration. It only takes a film like this to open up people's eyes and to open up, you know, opinions and judgment for, because obviously, you know, from what we know as Americans is, you know, our in terms of our immigration, it just primarily being focused on Mexico. We don't ever think about how Europe, different countries within Europe handle immigration and what they have to do. And remember, everything is a lot more spaced out. So especially if you have people in the Middle East or in people coming from Africa, they got to swim. They got to go through, but like there's so many different obstacles that we just don't realize. Like, I mean, at least for me, as someone who doesn't understand the topic, because I don't understand what it's like to be an immigrant, and I don't know anyone with immigrant stories personally. So it's very crazy to see that this representation of it, and it's very extremely powerful. And I think this would definitely be something that I hope gets into mainstream media at some point and is just kind of like passed around to show the ugly truth of how it is, not only in our nation but in other nations as well.
And absolutely, and not to be too political here, but I do think this is important for specifically, like you said, Americans to see, because if we're being honest, Americans tend to be about Americans. And I think when you watch movies like this, I hope we can all open our hearts to like different people around the world that have it so much harder, and go through unimaginable things. So I do think this is important. And unfortunately, there's not a lot of content about this in terms of, film or anything. So, I think that this, hopefully this becomes more popular, because I didn't hear about this until I saw it in the Criterion
Mm-hmm.
channel.
But I do think things like this are immeasurably important, and I think a lot of his films. So let's talk about Casus Belli now. So in Casus Belli is a short film by Yorgos Zois in 2010, and I believe it was one of his first short films. And the plot of that one is people of different genders, classes, ages, nationalities are waiting in 7 different lines, creating a huge human line. Arriving at the end of the human tale, however, the countdown begins. This one I saw first. Immediately, as soon as the camera started to move, you know me, I like camera movement. Keep it on a tripod. I say that all the time. I will get that tattooed on my back one day, where it's like, if you're going to do a movement, keep it on a tripod.
Dude,
And
that's
this
going to be our
short
merch
film,
one day. That's going to be our
literally,
merch.
he did it. Yorgos did it. Kept it on a tripod. It was smooth. It was seamless. And essentially, what the camera sees is your point of view following a bunch of people in different lines. They go through grocery stores, they go through clubs, they go through art museums,
Yeah.
They go through all different things, DMVs, which is what I think was one of them.
Yeah.
Just things in life that we normally have to wait in line for. But then in the end, it passes through a like a soup kitchen.
Yes. Like
soup kitchen?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like, so it's a food truck, but you can tell by instantly the change of clothes, the change of the atmosphere, that it's definitely not as, I'll use high class for lack of a better word, than, the grocery store and stuff. It's portrayed now in a darker light.
Right.
And you see a man going to get food and the food truck closes on him. And so keep in mind, so Casus Belli, do you know what that actually translates to?
I don't.
So it translates to simply an act that justifies war. That is the
Wow.
definition of casus belli. So the way that this continues is that once the man doesn't get his food, he turns around and he pushes back everyone. And every line that we see, because everything looks like a continuous line, even though it's going through different things, it's almost like everything rewinds all the way back to the beginning. And everyone just topples over and tumbles down. And 2 years before this short film was made, we went through the global 2008 market crash. And ever since that, Greece had a very, very tough struggle with their economy, to where one of the biggest issues that they faced was hunger.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And I thought this, once again, another 11-minute short film, spoke so much more volumes than any hour-long, 2-hour-long, 3-hour-long video that anyone else could have made. I felt like this was done well. What did you think about it, and what do you think about it compared to Eighth Continent?
So the thing about this film, it's a lot more, it's a faster pace. So I think that more people our age would be more willing to watch it throughout the whole thing. Not to say that Eighth Continent was boring or anything, but this had more like moving pieces in it per se.
Mm-hmm.
And I do feel like the message is very, very clear. He wanted us to know exactly what this was about. And you do. From the minute you're in the grocery store, you're like, okay, this is maybe about consumerism, whatever. And then you see this, a homeless man, right? That's like appropriate to say?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And then you're just like, oh, this is something else. This is about, when your brain starts working. And at the end, I want to say a movie. Can we still call it a movie if it's a short film? What's your take on that, right?
Absolutely.
Someone
said
that to me once, and I've been confused ever since. But all right, yeah. At the end of the movie, it's just the same grocery cart we see in the beginning, back to him. And you are like, what? What did I just watch? But it's so, again, he hits it on the nail. And I think he does it in a way that's subtle, but faces you with these issues. And I loved it.
I think
definitely, before I saw Third Kind, my favorite.
Ooh, I can't wait to talk about that one. But I thought this one was gorgeous too, because not only was the way it was shot, and I think also this is the most relatable because I'm speaking as an American, we have more of a hunger. Well, I'm not going to say we have more of a hunger issue. I think at least we're more known, like we're more conscious about poverty and starving children than we are about immigration.
There's a huge homeless population in a lot of cities. Like it's an issue.
Yeah, especially in America, like California. Yeah, holy crap, California has a huge, but it can be found everywhere. So I think out of all of this is the most, I don't want to say relatable, but is definitely the most understood.
We've all come face to face with this at some point as well.
Absolutely. And I think one of the what do you think? So I think what it means is when the homeless man pushes them down, I feel like this represents a huge chain. And all it takes, or rather like dominoes line up, all it takes is one push on one person to almost ruin the system. What's your take on that? What this whole, all of them, when the homeless man pushes them all and they all fall down all the way, from the grocery store to DMV to everything. What did you think that push represented?
I think you're pretty much the same thing, where it's just like, but I also said in my head, I was just like, okay, so like one person can also make a difference. That's kind of what popped into my head when he pushed everybody and everybody fell. And I also feel like at the end of the day, I don't think a lot of people, there's this stigma with homeless people. And it's very sad. A lot of people are very, they put themselves in this situation. And a lot of people don't think that they technically deserve rights. So I feel like in another sense, you can kind of say like, okay, that's them standing up for themselves and being like, okay, we have rights. We're also human beings. Because, like I said, there is a stigma with homeless people in poverty. But I do feel like it's definitely the one person can make a difference approach. What did you think of the ending, per se?
So I think it also was a matter of maybe in terms of attention to the matter, it doesn't take one person to bring awareness. It takes a whole chain. And I think it's one of those things where
very good.
Kind of like everyone needs to be knocked off their feet in order for the man to get what he needs. And like, let's be real. Food is a basic life necessity.
Yeah.
There's no going about it. At the end of the day, whether you make money, whether you do the one thing you need in this world is food. Scientifically, the one thing you need is food and water. And the fact that I think, because poverty is, obviously I don't agree with poverty, but economically it's understandable. Hunger is not.
No.
As it is a life necessity. It's a life necessity. You can, and I'm not saying that it's easy, but you can live without a home. You can live without clothes. You cannot biologically, scientifically survive without food. And the fact that it is still an issue for people to get food is insane. And I think that push is also can be significant of it'll take, and just for one person to be fed or just for these people to be fed properly, they don't need, the lavish food. They don't need, the super healthy, just something so that way they can be fed. It took all of those people to fall down for him to get what he needed.
And I also think it represents, like, they all ignored this person at one point. When this person went to go get food at the food truck, just shut down in his face. And I think most of us like to pretend that isn't happening.
I'm sorry, my mother is making a wreck outside.
I just heard screaming.
She's stimulating the dogs. I'm sorry.
No, I was just saying, I think most of us do like to pretend that isn't happening.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, in that push also represented, like, we do need to pay attention to these people because they are people,
And I wonder, because as soon as you said that, my thing is, could this camera perspective, because the camera stops when we see the homeless man, the man who pushes everyone down.
Yeah.
Could the camera represent him passing by everyone and him not being noticed?
That is what I thought. That is how I took it.
Okay.
But I don't know either. Like, I don't know if that's what the goal was. But that's why I'm saying I feel like at one point they all ignored him. Because I'm thinking, like, we're following this man or we're in this man's perspective.
Yeah, I definitely agree. Okay, so you would have to say Third Kind is your favorite, right? Because you said that, I think you said Casus Belli was your favorite until...
Yeah.
Third Kind, right? So let's talk about Third Kind, because Third Kind is my favorite too. Third Kind is one of his most recent, came out in 2018. It is a longer short film. It's 32 minutes and is considered sci-fi. And the tagline for it is, Earth has been abandoned for a long time and humanity has found refuge in outer space. 3 archaeologists return to Earth to investigate the origin of a mysterious 5-tone signal. So if you're like, Third Kind, that sounds familiar. Well, yes, there is a little bit of a play on Close Encounters of the Third Kind within this film.
Awesome
this
movie.
one, fantastic film. So this one actually has some stars. I don't know what the characters' names are, and they're all Greek names, so I am so sorry if I botch any of them. Alexandros Vardaxoglu, holy crap, I'm sorry. Effie Rasiber, oh god. Nikos, oh my god, they just keep getting tougher, I'm sorry. Nikos Hanakolaus and Miankel Waris Alwagul. I am so sorry. It's a short film that is not popular. I cannot find the correct translation for them. I did my best. But yeah, if you want to see how those are spelled, go on IMDb so you can pronounce it in your own head and not butcher it like I did. So Savannah, okay, so I had messaged you after watching both, and I had watched Third Kind already. I was like, you gotta see this. And I told Savannah, I was like, you have to watch till the very end, like literally until, because this short film is available on Vimeo, literally until Vimeo changes it or, kicks you out of the screen. What did you think of Third Kind?
What a great take on the message. What an interesting, creative way to talk about this crisis. That was awesome. That was, and I think out of all the films, not only did this have like the loudest message, but I think this is a film that everybody would want to see, especially if you're into sci-fi. But the fact that he mixed sci-fi and like the suspense genre with this, still the social commentary, that's awesome.
Yeah, and then also taking, parts of Close Encounters from the Third Kind, making it his own and making it meaningful is astounding. Like, I watched this literally 2 times consecutively because I was so shocked that, I could understand people not watching Eighth Continent. I could see Casus Belli being, more popular, but not as popular. But this, I'm almost upset that no one has come up to me and said, have you ever heard of Yorgos Zois' Third Kind? Because this is amazing. So it's set up like your regular sci-fi film. It's very creepy. You have these 3 people in suits and they speak different languages. One of them speaks English, one of them speaks German, and I believe the other one does speak Greek. And they go through, oh my God, my mother is loud. I'm sorry.
Sydney.
And I give them warning. I'm like, guys, I'm going to record. And it's when, they put on a game show or something. Someone's winning big and my mom is screaming at them from the TV. Sorry, guys. But it starts out as this really desolated sci-fi. And you have these 3 archaeologists exploring. And you get this feel that's like, okay, they are maybe from the future and they're coming to see what happened. And they're at the first location is an airport, completely empty. It looks like no one had been there for decades. And it's kind of just them exploring, putting piece by piece and trying to figure out what happened there. And my first opinion, so before we get into what it actually is, my first opinion of the film, what made me, I was like, oh my God, did I really pick this? I thought this film was actually after an epidemic because there's one part where they talk about vaccines, where they were like, oh, this was a camp. And in this place, they had 5 doctors and everyone was given vaccines and an MRE. I thought at first we were looking at something like that. What did you think initially before getting to the real deal part? What did you think this story was about?
Okay, so in the very, very beginning, I thought this was about, I thought it was like an environmental message, like about the environment and like what Earth became after we all left. And I thought like, okay, we're going to see like Earth thrive because humans left. But then as we were getting into the camp and we're seeing like, traces of people left behind, I realized I was like, oh, wait a second. This was like, the first thing I actually thought of was Holocaust. So then I was just like, okay, what is the modern day, like, what are modern day camps? And then I realized, okay, like we're talking about like 8th continent, but the people who like were left behind, if that makes sense.
Yeah, kind of like almost like a Lost Souls type of thing, like where no one is around and you're just trying to figure out why that is. And it's very eerie. Even just them walking through this abandoned airport is very eerie, especially when they get, so you hear about what was I going to say? You hear about the doctors and everything. Everyone was given one MRE, vaccinations, things like that. It's when then you go into like the home area where you start seeing all these camps set up and abandoned bikes and abandoned toys. And I think one of the most jarring images is you do see a child's picture. And I think it says something in the lines of like, I'd like to believe God is here.
Yeah.
And it's very like, oh. And there's video footage of kids that used to be there and things like that, having a good time playing around. But we still don't understand why these kids and these families are there. So Savanna, do you want to start leading off to how they get to the stadium and everything like that? Do you want to explain the ending?
No.
I was expecting you to say yes. Okay.
Because, I'm still a little... Because I had questions for you.
Oh, okay. No problem.
The ending, I think I grasped it, but then there was a specific, I think 1 or 2 parts where I was just like, ooh, I need clarification. So I'm sorry, but no.
It's okay. Decline. So, and I do also want to say, so while they are exploring, they're hearing this 5-tone signal throughout, and they're trying to figure out the reason why they're there is they're trying to figure out where this 5-tone signal is coming from. So they leave the desolated airport, and then they go into a stadium. And when they're at the stadium, you see the same thing, tents everywhere, just abandoned, some crumpled, some still there. It almost is like everyone kind of disappeared. It doesn't look like a war took place. It doesn't look like any tragedy or bomb went off. It just looks entirely abandoned. And for what reason, we don't know at the time. So while they're going through, they start hearing the tone, and it's louder and louder. And they then come across a young man who is sleeping in the tent. And essentially they talk to him, and they're like, why are you here? Why are you giving us why are you saying the tone? And it almost reminded me at first, I was like, is that the Hunger Games? Like the the Hunger, but it's not the Hunger Games. But they start talking to this young man in the tent, and it's sad because he's like, I don't know how long I've been here. I guess after a certain point, time stopped and I stopped aging. Almost like he can't, after years, he just stopped counting. And he says that he does this tone because it's from a movie he watched. And at that point, you're like, that tone sounds familiar. Yep. What movie are you talking about?
Yep.
The minute he says that, I'm looking around. I'm like, what do you mean a movie? Movies exist during this time? So then these 3 people in the spacesuits explain that they are from a different time. And when the young man goes, what are you guys here for? They go, we're here to know about you and to know about essentially what I interpreted was his memories.
Yeah.
And from there we see I don't even know what resolution the screen was, but we essentially see this young man's life all the way to the point where he is now. And his story is that he is an immigrant from the Middle East during a war-torn country. He fled, and he was staying at the airport. And then he was moved to the stadium. And even at the airport, when they were gone, there were still tough things that you can see in the imagery and stuff like that, which, by the way, was shot immaculately. I like the idea that they kind of did it all handheld, like on an iPhone.
Yeah.
It just adds a whole new sense of realism. And so once his clip is done playing, he asks them, will you guys be back? And he is surrounded, you just see the entire stadium engulfing him. And in Close Encounters of the Third Kind, the music, that 5-tone beat starts playing as different sections of the stadium start going. And then it kind of fades out. And then you see the credits. So before I want to get to that last little line in the credit, the one that changed everything for me, where was your little question, Savanna?
So when he said everybody is gone, did that mean everybody died? Because that's how I interpreted it.
I don't think so. Because of what they say at that last ending. Because of that last sentence. And trust me, if you are watching this, please do not skip the credits. I'm telling you right now, that last sentence does make this film 10 times more impactful. So Savanna, do you want to know my opinion of what this whole movie means?
Yes, because I couldn't see after the credits.
So, okay. So are you familiar with the movie Source Code? Do you remember that Jake Gyllenhaal film where they kept going back? Okay. I think this is vaguely similar to that. In a way where these 3 people, even though they're saying from a different time, I don't think they're there physically. Because if you notice, when they speak, their mouths don't open.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So that was something I thought was like, that's a little weird. Like, that's they're speaking, but their mouths are not opening. That's weird.
Different languages.
Yeah, and they all spoke different languages. So what I interpreted was that, and if you notice, the countries that are listed, the languages, English, German, and Greece, are, from what I know, the countries with considered the largest immigration problems.
Uh-huh.
So, and these three, space-suited people, their role is to be archaeologists. I'm thinking they're more like a memory archaeologist, where they went back into someone's, like, almost like in a present-day version of someone's mind from the past.
Mm-hmm.
And they went and kind of saw everything that the young man saw that day, and went to him and spoke to him directly, almost like speaking to his conscious.
Mm-hmm.
And for me personally, with the lights coming up, and it could be because I'm a little sci-fi nerd and I'm like reaching out to the stars trying to connect this plot. I thought when the music and the stadium, everything light up, I kind of thought it was like a representation of like the end of the simulation. Like the memory of this is closing.
Wow.
Do you know what I mean? Like that they gathered what they needed and the memory is done.
Right.
So I thought it was, like, to me personally, like a little source code thing. But the reason why this airport is abandoned and why this stadium is abandoned is because the last sentence of the film states that airport has been abandoned for years and at one point was a refugee camp for Middle Easterns trying to get into Greece. And then also that stadium, again, was a refugee camp that was then abandoned.
Wow.
And the one most powerful thing that, like, shook me to my core was that everything that you saw, the tents, the videos, the paintings, the children's paintings, all of that were left there. Because when they had to move, they couldn't bring anything.
Mm.
So everything that you saw that was there was actually there. Which is just crazy. Like, to think, because I'm like looking, I'm like, wow, they really put a lot of effort into this set. Meanwhile, it really is the belongings. Those everything belonged to someone at some point. Those aren't just props. You're literally looking at what was left behind in these people's lives.
Yeah.
Where they couldn't bring their cams, where they couldn't bring their personal belongings. They just had to bring the clothes that were on their back and go. The way I interpreted was this young man didn't want to leave. He just got tired of moving around. And so once everyone left, he kind of just went back and stayed.
Right.
Because they were already abandoned. There was no cleaning up. The airport is still abandoned to this day.
Right.
The stadium, I believe, is still abandoned to this day. So it would make sense if someone just kind of went back in and just went back to where they set up their home.
Oh, isn't that heartbreaking?
But that's why I love this one the most. I thought his directing style in this one, Eighth Continent and Casus Belli were all great, but this one was a whole new level. He very much reminds me of the director Denis Villeneuve, I believe I'm pronouncing that correctly. Yes. Yeah, the director of Prisoners. Yeah. I got that same feel from Third Kind. Did you have any different interpretation to Third Kind?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't see the post credits, so I was just thinking everybody died at this camp.
Gotcha.
Not realizing this is real. Like, what you're seeing besides the whole, like, space people thing is very real. And like I said before with all these films, these are movies we all need to watch. Because if anything is going to inspire people to help, it's this. It's this being put right in front of your face. And I know after, because I saw Third Kind today, I know after watching it, I was just like, where do I help? What do I do? Where do I go? And that is the feeling you should be getting from watching these films. Because they truly, like, and honestly, credit to him that he's using his talent to bring, like, these, humanitarian crisis. Because I don't know about you, but I don't see a lot of people. I hear people talking about it, but in the film industry, you don't really get a lot of films like this.
No, not at all. Not at all in any sense of the way. You don't get something that is not only made so immaculately, but the message is compacted. Usually with things like this, you see a lot of drawn out films, like films that tell an entire story within 2 or 3 hours. This tells you everything within 11 minutes. And that's really all you need. You only need 11 minutes to just show the gravity. And you only needed that single sentence at the end in the credits to literally make this film go from, I don't understand, to, oh my God. Yeah. Like the sentence, and even my mom was like, I didn't care for it. I'm like, you have to see the last sentence. And the minute she read it, she was like, I got chills. Like, it's crazy. Like, if you're looking at this like any other film, you might not think it's the best thing. But once you realize everything, there's so much hard truth.
This is real life
behind this film. It's real life. People were living in an abandoned airport. People had to escape war and had to escape the unheard of. How to go through so many different things. And like, even in the guy's travels of just getting to live in a little tent in the airport, he had to go through so much. You see him go crossing through land, crossing through sea, crossing through so much. And I think this by far is the best way, because sci-fi is something, obviously, as us Americans know, widely accepted. God, we can't take any more Star Wars. Jesus Christ. We'll have another 20 like within the next 4 years and everyone will be content with it.
Yeah.
So I think a film like this is so important because it can convey it to mass media. Yeah. It can convey it to the average consumer.
You know, and it's kind of like I said, like, this is a real story. This is somebody's life. And you're kind of taken back when you realize, like, this isn't just a little sci-fi picture. You know, this isn't, like you said, it's not Star Wars. Like, this is real life. And for most of us, you know, we hear the news and we see pictures, and unfortunately, we kind of just move on with our day. But I do feel like this is something where you stop and you stare. And I love that there's no political agenda to this. This is just about people.
It's just showing people's truth. It's not showing a political argument. It is not showing which side you need to choose, what you got to do. It is just telling someone's story. As you've actually said that quite a lot within the past few reviews, but I think it's brilliant.
Cool movies, you know.
We're doing, yeah, but like, this absolutely just tells someone raw story, and usually, sadly, we don't get to hear it without someone trying to sway you politically or trying to sway you emotionally. You get to view this film and interpret it as you want to. Whereas everything else that you see, at least in American media, likes to favor a side, favor a type of imagery, uses of words and stuff like that. Whereas this is just, here it is on a plate. You can choose to eat it or you can choose not to.
Absolutely. So watch this movie. You know, this is about people, and, you know, this is not something a lot of us can relate to, but I know now, after seeing this, when I hear these stories, when I see an article about immigrants, when whatever, like, now my heart is in, not that it was never in that place for them, but now my heart is like, I'm ready to help you guys. What do you
you have such, like, we both have, I don't want to say we have a great understanding, but we now have a deeper insight to such a large problem because we were able to view someone's life through a natural lens, not through rose-colored, not through, you know, ivy-colored glasses. Like, we saw it through with our own eyes. We were able to interpret it as we did. And that, without it being able to interpret it and show it neutrally to everyone, is the most open-minded approach you can do. Because obviously, if we felt that this had some type of, and I'm going to use political agenda very lightly, if this had some other type of purpose other than education and just showing people and telling them stories, we might react differently. We could have been turned off by it. We could have been more in favor for it. Anyone else too. So the fact that it's just like Yorgos Zois is just like, here you go. Here's a story. Here is someone's truth. You do what you will. And I think that is the most powerful way to have these messages. Now, because it's not citing and because it's not as, and I'm using air quotes, controversial as social media would deem it to be. I think that's why it has kind of fallen through the cracks. And that's why it's not known. But I do think it's okay if it's not known, because this message is gorgeous and beautiful. And I think people like you and me and to all the other purple noonies can spread this, say, and give word and be like, hey, there's this $2.99 short film that you can buy on Vimeo, and it's friggin' astounding. Watch it.
Absolutely. And at the end of the day, these people are not just a statistic. And I think he really brought that out. So this man deserves a lot of credit. And I'm very happy we saw these films. And I give all of them a 10 out of 10.
Same here. 10 out of 10 across the board. If you had to pick a favorite, okay, so what would be your 3 order? Even though they're 10 out of 10, what would be your, from 1, 2, and 3, what would be your favorite order?
Obviously, Third Kind is my absolute favorite, because I think that memory scene is just,
just wow.
And
just wow.
Of course, I love Close Encounters of the Third Kind, so there's that too. And then Casus Belli, I don't want to mispronounce.
Casus Belli.
Casus Belli, and then Eighth Continent. But all the stories were beautiful. But that's the order I would give it in terms of my personal favorite.
I think definitely Third Kind, number 1. I think for me, I really enjoyed the cinematography of Eighth Continent. So it would be, the last 2 would be switched. So it would be Third Kind, Eighth Continent, and Casus Belli. But you've heard it from us, guys. Check out these short films. They are absolutely fantastic. I also believe Casus Belli is available on YouTube for free. And I think maybe Eighth Continent as well. But we watched them on the Criterion Channel. And Third Kind, we found and we paid for on Vimeo. And I say it's definitely worth the $3 that it is to buy it. Mm-hmm. Like, absolutely. So I highly recommend that. And yeah, next time. So Savannah, what are we going to be talking about next time you hear us?
Twin Peaks.
Whoa. So the next episode is going to be a longie and a doozy, because we are going to be talking about Twin Peaks season 1 and season 2 and Fire Walk with Me. You might be like, but wait, guys, what about season 3? That is a whole different playing field, dude. We're going to reserve that for another day. We're going to keep it with the 90s, keep it with the OGs and everyone like that. And we'll get to season 3 another time. Yeah. So God, I can't, I'm at the point in Twin Peaks right now where that one song that James sings and it's like, just you, and it's eating away my brain cells right now. That one song in the 2nd season of Twin Peaks.
All the singing in Twin Peaks is a no for me. I'm sorry. Most of the singing.
Fair. That's fair. That's completely fair. But you'll hear more about it
at some point, and tomorrow I will go on a rant about that.
Yeah, and I mean, today's Friday, so you'll have a little bit more than 48 hours to binge through it all if you haven't. So get it done.
Yeah. All right.
You got no excuses. You should be home. Stay home. Stay in. Stay in. Watch some Twin Peaks. But yeah, so that's what you'll be hearing us next time. As always, thank you, Sir James. If you'd like to be thanked on the grand, like, because you listeners have heard every episode, you might be like, who the hell is this James guy? Lord James. He has now earned the title as Lord James, because he is our one and only Patreon subscriber.
Yeah.
The best of the best. And you know what? Maybe you could be a Lord. Maybe you could be a Lord too.
There's also a king option
if you join our Patreon.
For our ballers, you know.
Yeah, you can. There's also a $1 option where you get the official title from me and Savannah as a purple noonie.
Ew.
Who wouldn't want that?
I mean, I don't know. Somebody lame.
Put that on your resume. Are you kidding me?
Oh yeah.
You want a job? People are gonna be like, oh crap, they're an official purple noonie.
A great talking point too.
They're gonna be like, they have mad street cred for being a purple noonie. But yeah, check out our Patreon. Or if you're like, I don't know if I want to do Patreon, check out my short story on Audemic Media. It's titled Idol. Because guess what? When you buy it on Amazon Kindle, all the proceeds to that go to help us run this little show.
That's
so
right.
You can also do that too, and you can also read some of my work. It's a little spooky. But yeah, as always, we will see you guys soon and take care.
Bye.
Bye.